Well, welcome to Christ and Culture. My name is Jeff Short, and today I'm going to be talking again about the movie The Joker, the Batman movie The Joker. And I've given a review of this movie already, but I wanted to talk about a couple scenes in the movie that really bring out the point that I was trying to make in a previous video about the Joker, the nihilism of the movie. You know, the Joker movie shows a world in which there is no God. There's absence of God. It's a secularized world. It's a world where the secularist and the humanist and the far leftist socialist radicals have created a world where basically right and wrong is socially determined. That's what they've been telling us for all these many decades, as opposed to revealed in the scriptures, revealed in the Bible, giving us a foundation, a moral and spiritual foundation for right and wrong. The secularists have been saying all along, no, morality is just simply a human construct. It's simply the product of culture. People invented morality. That's what the academics are all telling us now at the leading institutions like Harvard and the Ivy League schools and some of the more sophisticated universities across the country, Berkeley, Stanford, MIT, all these leading institutions, the progressivist, leftist, secularist party line is that all morality is socially constructed. So we don't have to follow, they say, the Bible. We don't have to follow the Christian, Judeo-Christian ethic because, after all, they're just man-made, according to this secular philosophy. Well, in The Joker, we see a world in which all morality is a social construct. And one of the scenes, one of the most powerful scenes that I think a lot of people miss this, is that when the Joker, when this man is going on television, he's finally getting the chance to appear in front of one of the late night comedian talk shows that he watches with his mother in their apartment. He gets a chance to actually go on that show, and he shows up in his clown outfit and his costume and face painted clown. And one of the assistants on the television show says, "Oh, what's with the clown outfit?" And he says, "You're going to have to take that off before we go on." And the Joker says, "No, I'd like to leave it on." And they say, "Well, what's up with it? Are you part of the crowd?" Now, since he has been on his violent killing spree, there have been people, mostly men, young men, who have donned the clown outfit and the clown mask and have been rebelling in the streets and protesting and so on and so forth, the injustices against them and so forth. So the producer says, "Well, are you part of the crowd out on the street?" And he says, "No, I'm not. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in anything." That's what Arthur, the character, says before he goes on the show. He says, "I don't believe in that. I don't believe anything." And that's one of the keys in this movie to tell you that this guy is a nihilist. And he represents a growing number of people in society because we're seeing the rise of nihilism. Well, what is nihilism? Well, I've talked about nihilism before. But from a spiritual standpoint, nihilism is a dead soul. It's a godless, secular soul. It's a person that takes the modern thinking and modern academic thought and theories and modern science and puts it all together in his mind and comes to the conclusion exactly what the academics are saying is that there's no point or purpose to life. And that's what the leading scientists and the leading academics and the leading intellectuals are telling people today is that there is no plan and purpose for people or individuals, collectively or individually. There's no plan or purpose because there's no God, there's no will of God, there's no creator. We weren't created. We simply are the chance product of a natural system that goes on and on and on without us or with us, and it produced us. And the leading scientists and the leading professors and the leading academic institutions and the leading educational institutions in our country, the leading science journalists and the ones that make the documentaries on PBS and National Geographic and History Channel and all of these institutions, media, they're all coming together and trying to build this totally secular worldview about origins, about the meaning and purpose of life. And the message that they're giving people is that evolution produced humanity by accident because there's no plan to evolution. It just simply develops. And 13, 14, 15 billion years ago, there was an explosion that happened, and who knows why and who knows what caused it. It was just popped out of nowhere. It's called the Big Bang. And it spewed out matter and energy, and these chunks of matter and energy collided and exploded and coalesced, and we get stars and planets and moons and suns and solar systems and galaxies and so on and so forth. And we happen to land on a planet, third planet from the sun, and our planet just happened to develop a certain way. And then chemicals just happened to come together in a certain way, and life began, and then life began to just develop in some natural, materialistic way. And then we happened to just arrive, and that's where we're at, and we're not going anywhere. We didn't come from any place in particular, any special reason why we're here. There's no special purpose for us. We're just here through blind chance. And so that's the situation of life. And that's what the experts and the academics and the educational institutions are pumping out every single day. And people like this Joker character, Arthur, hear this, and they don't hear about the loving God who created everything for a purpose. He had a will and a purpose, an intention for creating the planet Earth and man and woman in his image. He created them. This Arthur evidently didn't hear any of that. He grew up in a secular home, a broken home, a messed up home, like so many people do today. And so his worldview just develops in a very secular direction. And in a secular direction means that there are no fixed rights or wrongs. There's no goal or purpose to human beings. And so nihilism, that dark, empty soul, is something that more and more people are finding attractive in their life today. And I've lectured on this before many, many times, but we see these mass shootings that happen in schools every year. We're into the new year 2020. We haven't had one yet, thank God, but no doubt there are going to be school shootings that occur in the years ahead, just like they did in the past, because of this secular environment that we live in. And young men, especially young boys, when they're growing up and they get that message and they get that into their soul, they see there's no purpose, there's no point to life, there's no flaming causes that they can join. Like in the earlier days, you can look back, for example, to the rise of the established church in the Western culture, the Judeo-Christian culture that has come down history to us for 2,000 years. And for most of that time, people operated under the Judeo-Christian umbrella, which basically gave them hope and meaning and purpose. And there was, for example, in marriage, there was the design of God, male and female, the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve. God brought them together. The first marriage was instituted. That's the pattern for all humanity. And so marriage is a man and a woman. This is from God. We need to follow that. But today, we have been destroying that whole message of meaning and purpose and fixed morality. And now in 2015, the Supreme Court legalizes so-called gay marriage. And that is just another indication to young people that there are no fixed values that we should believe in. We can believe in anything we want because there's nothing that really is absolute and firm in our minds. So there's nothing that we can really commit ourselves to. And so that's what this Arthur character says before he is being interviewed by this talk show host, Murray, his name is. He says, no, I'm not a part of that protesting crowd. I don't believe in that. I don't believe anything. That's what he says to Murray. He doesn't believe anything. He has no political convictions. He has no religious convictions. He has no moral convictions. He doesn't even believe strongly save the whale or we need to do away with landmines. You know, a lot of these causes that rise in a secular society. For example, Lady Diana Spencer, decades ago, was really big on landmine removals. So we needed to remove landmines so that they wouldn't blow up and hurt children. And that was her big cause. She really was passionate about that. And then some people are really into Greenpeace and that the environment and environmentalism now. We see the rise of this activism where you have this Greta Thunberg and her leading children to commit themselves to the environment. And that's supposed to be something that brings meaning and purpose to your life. And so as you see these causes that rise, these secular causes that rise up, in place of, in the past, you would have people commit their lives to God, commit their lives to the will of God, and have the burning in their soul to live their life according to God's will. Nowadays, it's whatever you want to do. You pick a cause. It doesn't matter what one. Just pick a cause. Do what you want to do. Commit yourself to it, because there are no real truer causes or more morally righter causes or whatever. You just pick something and pursue it. Well, Arthur, being a nihilist, he looks around and he goes, well, if everything's all the same, maybe I'll just not choose to believe anything. And so that's what he tells Murray, the host. He says, no, I'm not a part of that cause. I'm not protesting low wages. I'm not protesting the haves and the have-nots. I'm not protesting for better living conditions. I'm not protesting anything. I don't believe anything. I don't have any beliefs or convictions or causes to live or die for. And so that's exactly what we saw in the mentality of the Las Vegas gunman a couple years ago when he opened fire on some country and western concert goers from a hotel floor. He just opened the window, broke the window, and started pelting the concert goers and shooting them. And I think 30 or 40 people were killed by this gunman. And afterwards, he took his own life, and they started trying to assess, why did this man shoot this concert and what motivated him? And everyone's just drawing a blank. There's no rhyme or reason why this guy did it. He was a millionaire, supposedly. He had all the money that he needed. He seemingly didn't have any political convictions. He didn't seemingly have any religious affiliations or convictions. He didn't have any causes. He wasn't against anything necessarily. He wasn't for anything. He was just a blank, dead soul. And that's what nihilism is. And that's what this Arthur character is in the movie Joker. And the scary part is that's what more and more people are becoming today in our society. The idea that there's nothing to believe in. At bottom, everything is empty. At bottom, there's no reason or purpose or meaning in life. And you can either invent something or you can not invent something and just walk around as a nihilist and just don't believe in anything, don't believe anyone, don't trust anyone. And if someone does you wrong, you can either forgive them or kill them. It just doesn't matter. This is nihilism, and we're seeing more and more of it in our society today. So that scene really capsulizes something, a growing danger in our society. And we need to continue to talk about Jesus Christ. We need to talk about the Bible. We need to talk about the hope that the gospel brings to this world so that people don't have to despair and fall into this nihilism, like this Joker character. Now, there's another scene in the movie that is even more powerful, and it comes during the interview with Murray. Now, a spoiler alert, anyone who's probably interested in this movie has already seen this movie. I don't recommend this movie. It's a very violent movie, but one of the last scenes is where the Joker, Arthur, actually is being interviewed by the talk show host Murray, the comedian Murray, sort of like a Johnny Carson parallel. And Arthur comes on stage and he says, "Yeah, I killed those two guys in the subway." And Murray is taken back and gets disturbed by hearing, "You're the one that killed them." "Yes, I killed them." "Why did you kill them?" And Arthur starts making jokes and laughing. And the other hosts and the guest said, "Well, this is not something you should be laughing about." And Arthur says something to the effect, "Well, morality is like comedy. Comedy is like morality. I mean, laughter and comedy is subjective, and it all depends on how it strikes you, whether you're going to laugh at a joke. And so also is morality. And then he turns to the audience and says, "Isn't that what we've been told? That morality and basically is a construct, and it's a social construct. Very similar to humor." And he makes this parallel, and he doesn't go into detail explaining the parallel, but I was struck by the profoundness of that statement. He was equating humor with morality. And so you can hear a joke and react with laughter, but what makes a joke funny? Well, partly it's because of the context and how, as a society, we have decided what is funny and what isn't funny, and what is something you can laugh about and what is something you can't laugh about. Now, when Arthur was explaining and describing how he killed these two young men on the subway, he was laughing about it. And that bothered the people on the stage. And they said, "You shouldn't laugh at that." And he says, "Why not?" And he said, and he made the parallel. He said, humor is subjective, and so is what is right and wrong is subjective, because that's what we're being told. And when he's saying that's what we're being told, he's actually saying this is what is being taught by the leading thinkers and experts and leading educational institutions and the leading scientific institutions in our country. They're all saying that morality is subjective. Morality is arbitrary. Morality is a social construct, right? That's exactly what we're being told by the atheists and the secular humanists and the secular world. If you go to Harvard University, and you talk to the philosophy department, and you ask them, are there moral absolutes, right and wrong? They will tell you 9 times out of 10, if you speak to professors there, they will say, at the core, Morality is a social construct that humans invented for the benefit of society. And that's very similar to what humor is. Humor and what is funny is something that is a social condition. And that's why we don't generally laugh at certain things. We don't laugh at cruelty. We don't laugh at violence normally. We don't laugh at certain things because of the society's conditioning our humor. And that's why in certain societies, for example, humor is different in England, for example, than it is the United States. England has a very subdued understanding of funny. And it's a very, we might consider, in America, we might consider it a little stuffy. And it might actually be difficult to find out what's funny about some of the things that are done in British humor. For example, Monty Python, even though it was popular in the United States, it wasn't nearly as popular as it was in Britain. And it's because of the humor of the different cultures. And Britain had a certain type of humor, and the United States has a certain type of humor. And for a lot of people, Monty Python is just not funny. But over in England, it was a very popular comedy show and was very funny because of the way the different cultures view comedy and what is funny. And you can go to China, you can go to Japan, you can go to Russia, you can go to countries in Africa, and you will find that humor is different in different parts of the world because it's so much based on the social agreement of the people and the situation there in society. Well, what Arthur was saying in the Joker Batman movie was that just as humor is that way, so is morality. And he's saying that's what we're being told, that morality is a social construct. So if you go to Africa, you should expect different morality. If you go to Japan, you should expect different morality. China, different morality. Europe, North America, so forth. We shouldn't be surprised that it would vary. But this is directly contrary to the Bible. The Bible teaches that morality and right and wrong is the same wherever you go. And so it's also a direct attack on the Western Judeo-Christian culture, because the culture here in the West was basically raised on Judeo-Christian morality. And so this idea that morality is just made up by the people in society runs totally against, for example, how our war crime and criminal justice processed World War II war criminals after World War II. We didn't just drop everything and say, well, we can't try these Nazis that were working with Hitler after World War II. We can't put them on trial. We can't punish them. They were just carrying out whatever morality was in their society in the German Nazi social context. And to come in from the outside and judge these war criminals would be wrong. We have to accept the fact that morality is a social construct, and that within the Nazi regime during World War II and before, that German culture had developed a certain type of moral value that permitted them to exterminate 6 million Jews, that permitted them to kill political opponents, that permitted them to do all kinds of things. And we can't really sit back and judge them because their context is totally different from ours. No, we didn't take that approach. And you can't take that approach because it's self-contradictory. What we did after World War II is we set up war crime tribunals, and we judged these Nazis and collaborators, Nazi collaborators, guilty because of universal moral values. And we could do that because at the time we still had this Judeo-Christian ethic that taught us that morality is not relative. It's not just a social construct. It's not just invented by human beings. It's something that is eternal, that comes from the will of God. And so murder is wrong, not just because we don't like it. It's wrong because God Almighty says in the Ten Commandments, for example, thou shalt not murder. And to murder in cold blood, not talking about self-defense, justified killing, that fighting a just war, that's different. But murder, cold-blooded murder, is wrong by God's standard, and so we will punish that. And so there were Nazi war criminals that went to the execution and death chamber because of their crimes against humanity based on a moral standard that was not arbitrary, that was not relative. It was an absolute standard, and we judged the Nazi war criminals by that standard, which we should have. But in a secularized society that doesn't pay attention to any of the Judeo-Christian past, you can't do that consistently. You can do it, but you can do it inconsistently. So this Arthur character, when he said, hey, humor, all in the eyes of the beholder, morality, all in the eyes of the beholder, and any social moral standards is simply an arbitrary construct we've all invented, and so we can't trust it. It could be set up by those in power to keep those not in power in control, to keep society domesticated, but you can't trust the social moral standards. And so that's what Arthur was saying, and that's why he says he laughed when he talked about him killing these people, and murder and not murder was all the same to him. Killing and not killing was all the same to him. And so you see this nihilistic worldview coming into view. Well, unfortunately, that's what we're going to see more and more unless there is a turning away from it and back to sanity, back to the Judeo-Christian moral standards found in the Bible. That's why as Christians we need to continue to promote the moral teachings of the Bible. We need to promote the moral teachings of Jesus. We need to bring the good news of Jesus Christ to the world, even though they don't want to hear it, because we don't want to see a world like the Gotham City of the Batman Joker movie. We don't want to see people like this Arthur guy and the Las Vegas shooter and all these school shooters who are just nihilistic dead souls. We want to see a society where people have a soul and can tell the right from wrong. Well, I hope this has been a helpful review, and we'll see you back next week on another edition of Christ in Culture. God bless.